Hey, good afternoon for those of you on the East Coast with me here. And for those of you on the West Coast and farther out into the Pacific, good morning. For those of you way out there in Hawaii, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, I don't know what to say there. You guys are just so strong to be able to come here to this training. If you guys on the East Coast don't know that, we've got people coming in from Hawaii and I think it's like 6 o'clock. It's so awesome to see that the value we're providing drives them in. And they're not coming, I would submit, always for my content, because sometimes you can watch the replay. They're coming to meet you. And I love the fact that we've built a community here, and I'm really happy that you're here today. And so we're going to get started. I was almost late today, and I want to give you a quick tip if you're ever looking for little boosts. Because before I come into the training, I try to just make sure I'm in the right frame of mind. I don't watch news or any of this stuff. And the one thing that almost distracted me right now from getting in was I was listening to the most powerful voices in Britain's Got Talent 2022. And there's a little YouTube video, but the first gentleman singing was just rocking it. And if you get moved by music, maybe consider doing that, because that's a pretty exciting way to start off your day, or in this case, the training. Okay, so I'm just making sure I'm lining my stuff up here. By the way, I put out a post today, and I really want to let you know on LinkedIn before we get started on the formal training. I put out a post today on Department of Education strategic goals, their strategic plan. And actually, Benjamin in our community is the reason I did, because he asked me whether I knew anything about IT strategy goals or strategic goals in the Department of Education. And I didn't know off the top of my head, but I just quickly went in, found them, and said, well, as long as I'm going to give it to him, I might as well post it for everybody. But the thing I loved about it was, as I'm reading the strategic goals and what they're trying to get done with their strategic objectives to achieve those goals, one of the things I saw in there was this big focus on language and linguistics. I know we have people in the community, might be you, who have a core competency around linguistics, and we might actually see it as we go along, who that is. But if you're in linguistics in particular, go check out the post I did today in my feed with the Department of Education, because I think there's a lot of good stuff in there for you to follow through. And then for the rest of you, Department of Education isn't just about education, isn't just about student aid, financial aid, et cetera, for people going to school, but it's also about just running a big department. So they have all the other needs that we have in there. They might not do hair cutting services, but they do pretty much everything else we all sell. Okay, let's get started here. If you don't know who I am, I'm Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live federal sales training, where I discuss process and procedures for you to achieve success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner. And for the last 5 years or so, since 2018, I've been teaching people just like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's a process. Process goes from A to Z, right? And there's all these steps in between. When we follow the process, we achieve the outcome or the success we're looking for. And that's what I try to bring you each day. That's what the GovCon Chamber of Commerce is focused on. Our mission is around teaching you the process for federal sales. Before we get to that, I want you to sit there and help me and buyers, other people in the community, know who you are. Put your company name, put your core competency into the chat so we know who you are. I actually, I'm still delayed on this, but I want to share a quick screen. Usually I'm really, really prepared, but this one here, I have to come back for 1 second. Let me hit share. Share here, I think. If I do this correctly, there. First, I want to say thank you for those of you engaging. I haven't updated this in a couple of days, but I'm going to update it again. And we just want to say thank you for engaging. When you engage, you not only are helping us who are preparing the training, we're getting feedback from you, et cetera, which is awesome, but you're also engaging with the community. And so I want you to just keep doing that. That's awesome for all of you to be interacting with others. But I wanted to do something here, and Hunter gets to be called out. Number 2 on the list. We've hyperlinked Hunter's name to her LinkedIn profile. And we picked one word with her that she does, right? So I know what they do because it's what I used to do as a company, right? So it was easy for me to say SharePoint. Here's what I would like you to do. If you would like me to do that same thing, have a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile, so maybe we can hand this out as a handout once a week or once a month or whatever. It makes it easy for people to connect with you. So do a couple of things. Send me one word that describes what you do that I can put in parentheses here. right? Try your hardest to go, what's one word that describes our core competency? And don't worry about that one word preventing you from getting something else. Number 3 is Rafa. I know she does construction, facility management services, but if she put in elevator, that's not going to prevent her from being found for other related stuff. So if you're software development, you might put DevSecOps, things like that. But give me one word I can put in here. If you give me one word in the chat, I will put the hyperlink to it so that so people can find you faster and get to the hyperlink. Hope that makes sense. I don't want to take too much time on that so I can focus on the training at hand. But if it makes sense, do what I said in there. So there you go, Matthew, e-learning, audit, perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, so let me shoot over to today's training. Today's training, we're going to be talking about outreach, right? So federal outreach done right means being successful in your efforts. And this is the 4th step. It's actually the 4th training in a row. 4th out of 5 this week, but it's the 4th step in the 7-step process, which I'll show later for federal revenue success. And outreach is about reaching out to buyers and teammates. It literally is that simple, right? Tomorrow, we're going to wrap up this week's lessons on relationships. We're going to talk about relationship building. So if you haven't registered for that, do that on LinkedIn so that you're just in there and you're letting us know you're showing up and you're going to be there. So let's get started. I'm going to cover a couple of things. I want to cover the purpose of outreach. I want to talk to you about how you can do successful calls, not great calls. And I hope if it's your first time, it'll be a really eye-opening way of looking at phone calls. And then the last thing I want to cover is what's the process for initial outreach. So I'm hoping in these 3, you find some nuggets that really help you later this afternoon, tomorrow, or into next week as you do outreach. So when you think about outreach, one of the reasons I'm doing this training is because I know there's people like you who perhaps aren't getting indoors or you're not having the success that you look for. In fact, I was just talking with somebody earlier today, this morning, Gus and I were on a call, and this person's challenge is not so much the outreach, it's the targeting from yesterday. And what they're learning is that as soon as they find the right people targeting, they will begin to outreach and start getting into the agencies or into the program offices that they're looking to do. And so if you feel like you're not getting in the door enough, or when you get in the door, you're not having the success you would have expected from a meeting, then that's who I'm trying to target in today's training, right? That's what I want to help you with. Something to keep in mind, though, is you have to take responsibility. If you're not getting indoors, if you're not having success, I don't want you to take responsibility like I'm blaming you. I'm saying, oh, you're doing things all wrong. What I want you to do is I want you to take responsibility for the fact that you're not getting indoors or the fact that you're not having as successful meetings as you want. The reason I want you to take responsibility, again, is not blame, but it's control. If you take responsibility, then you give yourself control over your future. If you blame the government contracting officers for the fact that you're not having successful meetings, then only until they change what they're doing will you have success. But if you take responsibility and say, look, it's all on me on why I'm not having successful meetings, then you can sit there and do things, have the control to start having successful meetings. Your contracting officers will love it for you. So if you take responsibility, I'll give you control with the recommendations and the tips today. I want to show really quick, just remind us all where we're at in the process. So here in the process, the 7-step process for federal revenue success, right? If you've been with me all this week doing the training, you know that the 7 steps begin with visibility, making sure you look good to the buyers and teammates. Yesterday, our training was around targeting, finding the right people. And today we're going to be talking about outreach right here in the middle, how to have meetings. When we do outreach correctly, we will start developing the relationships that we want, strategic relationships that will last us. These relationships will lead to opportunities into our pipeline, which will lead to proposals that we write that will win us sales. And it all kind of, that relationship building all starts with outreach. And that's what I'm trying to cover today. Okay, one last thing on the purpose of outreach is, and just thinking of it from a bigger level. Outreach, you could think of it like cold calling, but if it's done right, there's no cold calling anymore. It's just warm sales. And I'm going to show you further on in today's training what I mean by warm sales and how to have warm sales. But if you've got a little anxiety around outreach and calling new people, I'm going to show you how you can begin to warm it up so your anxiety level comes down, right? We don't get rid of all of our anxiety. There's always going to be a little bit, but I can make it so much easier on you just by doing a few simple steps in the process. Before I move on to the next thing, I wanted to ask your help on something really quick. For those of you who don't know, we're into our second 100 trainings in a row here. And so I think we're up at like 115 or something. And next week, we have 5 more days. We're planning out training. We have 2 topics, and I want to find out which one you want me to do first. One is targeting. Yesterday, I did a targeting training, but it was like trying to take a whole day's training and push it into 30 minutes. And so what I said yesterday is I'm going to break it up into 5 trainings on targeting, how to really find the right people at teammates, small and large, and at federal agencies, people in the program offices, the contracting offices, small business shop. So I'm going to spread that across 5 days related to targeting, finding the right people. We have a second topic around large primes. How do I get into a large prime? The different ways. And so we've got 5 different lessons that we can go into targeting and getting into a large prime to be a sub. We have 5 trainings around that. What I want to know from you is which one do you want me to do next week? Targeting or large prime? So put that in the chat if you've got an opinion on which one I do next week. It would be great if our training begins to be driven a little bit by your votes. And so whatever you put in there, we'll count up the votes, and that's the training we'll prepare and deliver. By the way, don't put both, just put one. Okay, let's get rocking on to how to have successful calls and not great calls. The first thing to keep in mind about a meeting in federal sales is that it's supposed to move the sale forward. If you go into a meeting and the sale does not move forward, then it is not a successful call. A successful call moves the sale forward. Even a teeny bit at a time is fine, but it moves the call forward. If you go in and have a meeting where everybody loves each other, they loved my presentation, we had such great chemistry, we said we're going to follow up someday, that's a great call. And you can hear people, maybe even yourself, say this where you come back and, how was the meeting? It was great. It was awesome. It was one of our best meetings. When I look at people, I say, was it successful? And that's what I want to teach you, is that you should have successful calls. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to measure that. And it's an objective, right? You have an objective in a meeting. That's how you have success. I'll talk about that in 1 second. But before I do, when you go into a meeting, you want to use a tool, it's my recommendation, called a call plan sheet. The call plan sheet allows you to be prepared when you go into a meeting. So if you've done any of my other training, I talk about making sure you do research after you set up a meeting so that when you go in, you're able to communicate that you care about them enough to have done your homework and your research. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. When you do your homework and you do your research, you not only are able to prepare for the call to have a successful call, but you're also able to communicate to the other person, hey, I cared enough to do my homework and come in. I had that pause there for a second, because this is how I'm trying to show you that I care, is that I'm preparing topics. I'm trying to prepare this training with Gus and others where we deliver you nuggets every day that you can take in sales. So we're trying to tell you we care. You can tell your buyers just from how you interact with them that you've prepared, and prepared means I care. So in a call plan sheet, and I can, I've got a template on that, but in a call plan sheet, it's got an objective at the top, which I'll expand on in a second, but that basically is, what do I want to get out of this meeting to have it succeed, right? So you want to say exactly how you're going to measure your meeting in order to achieve success. The next thing it has is this call plan you can look at, but it's got basic information to make sure you have your name, contact, all that kind of stuff. This is really helpful when you're handing a call plan to a colleague. They instantly can come up to speed, right? But the next thing it has, what I love, is an icebreaker. People talk in sales, sometimes they get confused and think we should talk about somebody's children or golfing or a sailboat or whatever. When you go into new meetings, in particular new meetings, right? I don't mind if people I've been talking to for a while ask me about kids and sailing. But when I get a brand new meeting, a brand new relationship, I have no interest in talking about any of my personal life to you until I figure out who you are. Remember, we need to know, like, and trust you. I'm still trying to know you at this point. When I like you, I will start talking about my life. When I trust you, I'll talk about my work, if that makes sense, right? So when you go in, though, you still have the need for an icebreaker. How do you warm up that meeting when you get in there? What I'm recommending is you look for somebody's for somebody on the internet and you find some information. An example is I found this person in Booz Allen yesterday when we were talking about targeting, and I saw they wrote an article, or they were commenting in an article. So my icebreaker would be, hey, Bruce, I saw you in that article. It was fascinating what you were saying about this. And then I shut up. And it lets Bruce go, oh, yeah, that was fun to do that article with whoever we did it with. That was a really important project for Booz Allen, and we were able to do it. I'm not talking about my meeting agenda yet, but I am talking about something professionally related to that. And it's still kind of making Bruce go, Neil's a cool guy. Like in whatever level I can be cool, right? But it's an icebreaker related to the job, to the profession that we're talking about. And so that's in there. And then the last part of the call plan has questions. You lay out questions and you see what's there. I have an entire training, and if Gus is good at this, he's going to try to find which training we've done before so he can put it into the chat for you. But I have a whole training on how to fill out a call plan and the things you want to prepare. If you want a copy, by the way, of my call plan template, put that in the chat that just says call plan, please. So let me talk about objectives really quick. Let me just I'm trying to track my time. I always have more to say than I have time. So I wanted to give you 4 examples of an objective, because sometimes people like me go, hey, you should have objectives in there. And then I loosely did it. Today, I prepared 4 to give you as examples. And so really quickly, the first one is, let's say I'm going into PEO Digital. This was my example yesterday for the Navy. I want to go into the Navy. Their office is PEO Digital. I'm meeting with the deputy director, right? And by the way, if you don't know this, in the Navy, the deputy director of program offices and program executive offices, they were designated to be industry outreach, basically. And so that's why I use them as today's example. My 2 objectives in there could be, I want them to introduce me to people on their team. So PEO Digital has a lot of people working in there under the director and the deputy director. And so I can look into PEO Digital. I would probably actually look at, these 2 programs and say, hey, these 2 are where I'd like to go further. So I meet with the director. My objective, I'm not really saying it to them yet, but it's my goal in the meeting. My objective is to get introduced to people on their team. I want them to sit there and send an email. I want them to give me their name. At the very least, somehow I want to make motion towards those programs. So that's one thing, introduction to people. Another objective I could give myself as maybe a backup is I want to get a copy of a briefing deck. Has PEO Digital recently done a briefing to industry or to themselves or whatever that talks about your organization that I might be able to do further homework? This is really good because it allows me to come back and do more with him. But often in briefing decks, they have points of contact and people's names, et cetera. So that's a good one. A second meeting I'm going to have is with a Booz Allen person related somehow to this PEO Digital that I'm going after. I'm going to meet, I'm going to go in there, and my objectives are going to be, I would like to get a meeting with the Navy program manager. I know that Booz Allen won a $190 million contract with PEO Digital. When that happens, some program manager is now running that program and has profit and loss responsibility. My objective is to try to get an introduction to that person, or at least their name, right? Maybe they have a subcontract manager who's managing the outreach with small businesses. Whatever it is, that's who I'm trying to meet. Another objective related to that is the Navy business development lead. So if I'm meeting with this Booz Allen person, can you introduce me to whoever's in charge of the Navy, or if I'm even better, whoever's in charge of PEO Digital business development? Booz Allen is just like our companies, right? They have business developers and capture people. So one more thing for Booz Allen is an objective. I want an NDA. If I get an NDA from Booz Allen, that is a fantastic step forward in the sales process, because it is now a written piece of paper, basically a written commitment to our desire to continue talking, compared to us having a verbal commitment. And you know this, right? When you go into paper, you're starting to get into a more formal relationship. With larges, it's not Neil and Janie signing it. Janie has to get Janie's boss's permission, and then they go to legal. So they're investing their time and money at whatever level into that NDA, into the relationship. That's a good step forward for me with Booz. Contracting officer, objective in there is to get an introduction to a simplified acquisition procurement. I forgot what SAP stood for, but the person responsible for simplified acquisition or a tool they have, right? How are PEO Digital opportunities that might be smaller coming out? Do you guys do SAP at that level, or do you do it at the NAV C level, NAV WAR level, whatever? I would like something like that because that's a good objective for me to get so I can start tracking on opportunities that are under $250,000 and are not competing with larges. The other thing I might get from a contracting officer, an objective, is I want to get your acquisition process. USDA has this beautiful roadmap of how acquisition moves through the agency. I would like to get that same thing from PEO Digital or whoever I'm meeting at the contracting shop. If they don't have it written down, I say, could you just kind of walk me through what's it like from the minute a requirement is thought up of in the program office to award? What are the major steps? If I get that, I can begin to then align my opportunities in my pipeline to their roadmap, not my general roadmap. Last one is small business specialist. I want to get an objective meeting with them is I want to know your criteria for referring me to program office people at PEO Digital, for example, right? What do I need to do or look like in order for you to not be embarrassed to introduce me, right? For you to actually proactively refer me. So I want to get that criteria. I'm telling my boss, hey, that's my objective for this meeting. The one other thing I can get a small business specialist to do is tell me what to do. If I can get a small business specialist to tell me, hey, you need to go do this. I'm like, thank you, Jane. Thanks for telling me. I'm going to go knock that out. Do you mind if I follow back up just to make sure I'm doing what you said correctly? They never will say anything but sure, right? So now I've started the relationship. Remember, I'm not trying to have these meetings where I'm instantly going to a sale. It's all about building out a relationship. And these are example objectives. So hopefully that made sense. If you'd like a copy of the call plan template, actually I'm updating it with these sample objectives in the call plan template. Just put that in the chat. Okay, so 21 minutes. We got 9 minutes left. I got one last slide I really want to cover on the training part. And this goes into the process for initial outreach, right? You do targeting in our process where you're finding the people you're going to call. You're just building a list of names, numbers, and emails. But then you're going to reach out. Well, the first thing I want you to pay attention to is how to turn it into a warm call instead of a cold call, right? Cold calls are where I find people's names, I pick up the phone, I call them completely cold, right? I don't mind doing that. I can do that, but it's two things. It's the most anxious building thing to do. And the second thing is it really doesn't make it the chances for success that great. The more you can warm up a call before you ever have it, a meeting, a cold call, the more you can do that and warm it up, the more chance of success you'll have. And I don't mean success sale. I mean success meeting the objective, right? Okay, so one of the easiest ways, and there's many ways, and we've got training on the many different ways you can warm up relationships, but I'll give you the easiest one. If I'm looking into Booz Allen, as I used a minute ago on the examples, I will reach out to, I will find Bruce's name. I think that's the guy's name from yesterday, but I will find Bruce's name. And then I will find Bruce on the internet somewhere. And in particular, I'm looking for him on LinkedIn. In the LinkedIn, I can engage Bruce slowly at first. First, I'm going to be off his radar, aware of him. Then I'm going to slowly get on his radar. So now he's aware of me, but I'm in the, if you know what a radar is, like the big circle, I'm in the outer rings. And my goal is eventually get into the middle ring and meet with Bruce, right? But you can think of it kind of like this. If I go to a conference, an Air Force conference, I'm in a meeting room and Bruce is the speaker up there. I'll listen to him stuff. I'm his speech. I'm engaging him from the audience seats. And then I stand up and I start inching my way towards the front of the room as Bruce is done. He's feeling like he did a great job speaking. And as I get up there, I'm trying to be in his general radar. He can see me as he's talking to somebody. He might be just kind of glancing around the room and he notices me, but then I'm getting closer and he can tell I want to talk with him. And then he makes eye contact and says, hey, I'm Bruce. Hi, I'm Neil. I loved your talk. I thought this part was particularly interesting. I'd love to have an intro call, right? It's a way I'm trying to help you understand how LinkedIn can be pretty similar to going to a conference and being in a meeting room with somebody that you would want to meet. You just follow it that same pattern. And I have a whole set of trainings that are available, and Gus is putting some of them in there actually, but this way of warming people up by engaging with them on LinkedIn. The next thing I want to talk about for process for initial outreach is just literally, how do I make my first outreach to Bruce? Never talked to him before, never did anything. This is what I do. By the way, I obviously do research and I do some preparation activities on the outside. But I mean, first thing I do when I do outreach is I call and leave a voicemail. I'm following a script that I have for myself to leave a voicemail. The reason I like leaving a voicemail and the reason I like calling is because almost nobody answers their phone these days. And so I can call and I can leave a voicemail. In marketing, this is called an engagement or a touch. Then I can follow up a couple hours later with an email saying, hey, Bruce, following up to the voicemail I left, just wanted to try to get on your radar for scheduling an intro call. I noticed you here, whatever. The template that I use for my email is already prepared and it's personalized to Bruce. I do not spam ever. Just full stop. Okay. I'm really trying to target Bruce. I really want to meet Bruce. If I can meet Bruce, that could turn into $10 million a year for me down the road. And it starts with just a hello, right? 10 million starts with hello. But people want to know you care. And so don't spam them. Okay. So I do a voicemail. I leave an email a couple hours later. I spread it across because I want them to go, oh yeah, I listened to that voicemail. People don't generally answer their phone these days, but they definitely listen to their voicemails. People like me listen to it a couple days later or something, but we eventually go, that voicemail thing, let's go check that out. The next thing I do is, I have a 30-day follow-up plan on how I can keep engaging Bruce until he finally does get back to me. But before I get down to that and talk about that, I wanted to tell you that my next activity is I'm scheduling a meeting. Once I finally connect with Bruce, I'm going to schedule a meeting. And I want to just give you a tip here is when you're scheduling a meeting, spread it out over a few engagements. And what I mean by this is, let's say you get on the phone and Bruce says, hey, Tuesday at 2:00 works perfect for me. Awesome. I'm going to schedule a meeting. So then I go and I schedule a calendar meeting and I send it to him. And I wait a little bit and then I don't care whether he accepts or doesn't accept. I then send a follow-up email a few hours later that says, hey, great talking to you. I sent you an invite. Look forward to talking, right? It's just thank you for scheduling the meeting. Those are engagements. I'm warming Bruce up before I talk to him. I've got a whole, Gus has got the training here in the chat I can see, but that engagement that you do will warm up the relationship with Bruce so that by the time we get there, he feels like he's actually knows us more than he did. And it's no longer cold, it's warm. I've shown this bell curve, and I don't have time to show it to you right now, but I'll summarize it this way. When you're reaching out to people, some people will do what you want, some people won't. That's just the way life works. And what you need to keep in mind is some will, some won't, so what, right? And so what is not a negative thing. It's just like, don't dwell on the so what's. Don't dwell on the some won'ts, right? Just focus on the people who are getting back to you, the people who are responding. If you follow my 30-day process that I lay out, and I've got, again, a handout for that, but if you follow the 30-day process for the people who won't get back to you, and they don't get back to you, well, that's okay. They're just the some won'ts. That happens to me even right now, right? That's totally normal in sales. But you want to remember that just some people will get back to you, and you want to give your attention and focus to them. So if you want a copy of the 30-day follow-up process handout that I have that guides you through 30 days of trying to go after a person who perhaps isn't getting back to you right away, put that in the chat. Okay, so in this training, we talked about outreach and how to get started. I want you to remember one thing. Pick up the phone and ask for the meeting, right? The answer is always going to be no if you don't ask. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. So just pick up the phone and ask for a meeting. Remember that one thing as you get into outreach, and you're going to start rocking it. If you found today's training helpful, valuable, give it a thumbs up. Let other people know about it. I want to especially thank you for being here today. I'm looking forward to seeing those one-word core competency description that you might have put in. And remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is coming back tomorrow for relationship building. I'll see you there.